And welcome to the Quirky Beagle. As always, I'm Dave Cash, and this is the Ins and Outs Final Review. Yes, welcome to the Ins and Outs Final Review, the show where I cast a critical ear over 3 records, 2 from my stock down at Not Just Vintage, and 1 from my own personal collection, although maybe not this week. And before I get started, a quick apology for no episode last week. I was flattened by the norovirus, and frankly, I couldn't get enough words out in between vomiting and worse. So I've had to wait till this week to catch up. And so hopefully today's show will make up for it. And from now on, by the way, we are moving the upload days or the release days to Thursday. So from now on, the show will be out every Thursday rather than Monday, just to help me catch up a little bit, but also because I'm currently recording a podcast series, also a Quirky Beagle production, but very different from this. And there'll be more details on that possibly at the end of the show. And the first record up today is A Hard Day's Night by the Beatles. This is the Beatles' 3rd studio album, and it's also the soundtrack to their very first movie of the same name. And overall, I'm looking forward to this one because this is a pretty great record. So track 1 is, of course, A Hard Day's Night, with that opening chord, which it's probably as famous as the rest of the song just by itself. But it's actually a brilliant track. I really enjoy this one. It highlights the band's fun side as well as McCartney's talents as a vocalist. The song also touches on the working class background of the Beatles and the difficulties of finding it and then keeping love whilst working those long hours. The record clicks along quite nicely for a couple of tracks until it hits Happy Just to Dance With You, which is kind of a clean-cut American pop sort of track, which it doesn't quite suit the Beatles' rock and roll status. And it doesn't help that it's then followed by the stripped back, fairly bare and monotone And I Love Her. With the Beatles trudging through 2 fairly mundane, fairly plain tracks, it does leave a hole in the listening experience on this record. But luckily, side 1 is saved by the next 2 tracks, Tell Me Why and the brilliant Can't Buy Me Love. Anytime at All kicks off side 2, and it's by far my favourite song on this whole record. It's got a really good heavy rock vibe. It feels a lot more like the Beatles, and John Lennon gets to growl his way through it with this perfect rock vocal. It's a short but sweet song, which I guess kind of comes out of nowhere. The whole feeling of it feels very distinctive. It feels like Beatles Plus in some ways to me. And even if you're not a Beatles fan, but you do appreciate a good rock song, then this has got to be the song for you. Overall, a thoroughly enjoyable record. It feels sometimes a little bit like it's a John and Paul vehicle with Ringo and George kind of dragged along for the ride. But with tracks like The Things We Said Today and I'll Cry Instead, it's a great ride to be on. The record and the film were both a critical and financial success, and happily it helped the Beatles cement their foothold in America. And this particular edition is the Portuguese edition. We also have the English one in stock down at Not Just Vintage. It's in really nice clean condition, and it's, as always, very reasonably priced. So don't forget to check it out next time you're down at Not Just Vintage, which hopefully is soon. The next record today is Paul Simon's Still Crazy After All These Years. There's a sort of irony to this record because And I don't know whether that's deliberate or not, because this record never really feels that crazy. In fact, it's probably the least crazy in our stock down at Not Just Vintage. As someone who's never really been a huge fan of Paul Simon or Simon and Garfunkel, I'm also aware that this really is Paul Simon's MO. He's not a loud rocker. He just lets his lyrics do the talking and the music do the walking. Which doesn't make any sense, but it sounds good. And for some reason, when you look this record up online or on Discogs, it's still classed as rock, though to me it feels much more like easy listening. So why oh why did I choose this record? Well, overall it's a good record. There's nothing wrong with this at all. It's a good, solid affair. But I chose it for one record, or for one track and one track only. It's one of my favourites, one of my little boy's favourites. It's my wife's least favourite song in the world. It's 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. The TV just came on. Spooky. Austin and I will listen to 50 Ways over and over and over in the car, much to my wife's dismay. And I think sometimes we have given her more than enough reason to think of at least 50 ways to jump out the car. The step 2 drum beat marches right through this song as Simon gives advice to a bunch of dodgy dudes on how to duck out of their relationships and one-night stands, making it probably one of those songs that wouldn't be well received today and would quickly garner hashtags. But I would say it's definitely a product of its time. One of the best aspects of this song is the game you can play, where you basically make up your own name and transport rhyming lyrics. For example, drive off in a tank, Hank. Jump on your bike, Mike. And fry a tuck off your foot. And so this record has always received good reviews. It landed squarely and favourably with Paul Simon fans back in 1975, and it's always been consistently well received since then. But it's not for me. It's a good record. I enjoyed listening to it once. I don't think I could listen to it many times per year. With the exception of 50 Ways, it's a very slow going song. It's like wading through musical treacle. But if you're a Paul Simon fan, you've probably already got this already. But if you haven't, it's down Not Just Vintage. It's cheap. And with 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, it's cheerful. Unless you are the lover, in which case it's really not. And the final album of this week is Bob Dylan's Highway 61 Revisited. Released in 1965, this is my go-to album when I need to put my headphones on and crack on with writing either this show or my upcoming podcast. This is it. This is the record I choose every time, or the playlist that I choose over on Spotify. With Spotify in mind, however, it's a great album with great content, but don't forget this album was born onto vinyl, and that's where it belongs, on vinyl. Track 1 is instantly recognizable from that opening drum strike and throughout. Like a Rolling Stone, it is filled with vitriolic anger towards the world, and it's a song that Rolling Stone magazine rated as number 1 in the 500 greatest tracks of all time, which is a great accolade. And although it is debatable, such is the importance of this song, it would be hard to argue that it doesn't deserve to at the very least be in the top 10. So having such an esteemed song as your flagship track, you know this is going to be a special record. And whilst I enjoy pretty much all the following tracks, my ear is always caught by the Ballad of a Thin Man. This song is a slow, rolling blues track with Dylan at the piano, and it's filled with such venom that even the drummer, Bobby Gregg, described the track as nasty. Certainly, I wouldn't want to cross Bob Dylan, a man who's capable of writing lyrics so sharp they could easily cut you down. So we move quickly on to the title track, Highway 61 Revisited, with its opening penny whistle, whee! The highway in question is often referred to as the Blues Highway because it runs from Minnesota all the way down to New Orleans. It also passes through many legendary blues towns and cities, as well as intersecting with the crossroads where blues guitarist and singer-songwriter Robert Johnson supposedly sold his soul to the devil in return for his success. Highway 61 Revisited takes a look at Highway 61 itself with a great deal of imagination, placing upon it great biblical sacrifices, wars, and as being the destination for the lost and the misplaced. Indeed, it turns a highway into a destination rather than simply a part of a journey, and it gives the highway a unique character all of its own. It's a lighter, skippy blues track, which acts quite nicely as a palate cleanser, especially when combined with Dylan's somewhat out there lyrics. And it makes this overall a pretty fun and really enjoyable track. So overall, this is a really worthwhile record and you have to have it in your collection. If you're a Dylan fan or not, this is an all-time classic record. And even if you're not quite sure about Dylan's vocals, because I've heard some people say he out and out can't sing, to me it's quite a naive sound, but he certainly controls his voice well enough. I love it. And normally this is where I would say, but you can't have it. It's in my collection at home, but not this one. This one could be yours for free. You can win this one over on our Facebook page. It's one of those click and share dealios, and it's best if you live local because it will have to be collected from our unit down at Not Just Vintage. Go ahead and have a go. You know, it's worth a punt. And if you like our page, we do this kind of thing every month. We give away a classic record. This month you will be very well rewarded if you were to win this record. It's a great one. So that's it for this week's show. Thank you very much for clicking, and don't forget we are moving the release date of Ins and Outs from Monday to Thursday, and pretty soon I hope to have out the first episode of my new podcast called Carnival of Souls. It's nothing to do with records, but it is a Quaker Beagle production. And it's more for people who enjoy their horror movies, their mysteries, their supernatural, things like that. It's just me chatting about these things and not really coming up with any conclusions, just chin wagging. So if you enjoy that kind of subject matter, do keep an eye out. I'll probably post an update over on our Facebook page, and there will also be a Carnival of Souls Facebook page very soon. So once again, thank you for checking in with us. Thank you very much to all those people who've been down to Not Just Vintage and picked up their records recently. We've had some really nice feedback. People telling us that it's a great selection, great prices. I really appreciate it. Your feedback is always really well received, unless it's bad, in which case I sob into my pillow. Thanks again, guys. Don't forget to check in next week. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't also forget that we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, of course, and we'd love to see you on all of those. And if you are going to subscribe, do hit that bell icon, because that bell icon will notify you every time I upload something new. Take care, folks. Have a great week, and I will see you next week. Especially because it opens with that single guitar chord, which pretty much has its own fan base. There's a helicopter going overhead. It's the RAF. Got a train. And the final album of the show is Bob Dylan's Highway 61 Revisited. It's quite shiny.